So one of the things I've been thinking about lately is context, and it was something that came up in one of my classes. We were talking about it. It came from Edward Hall's essay on context and meaning, and if people haven't read it, you want to check it out. Hall is really a great scholar, and he does this work on the difference between high context and low context. And I'm sure there's probably lots of stuff here on YouTube. And then just as that was happening, Conference Report had posted up a video called "The Collapse of Context Collapse," which I think is partly a response to, or it's sort of in the wake of all of those concerns. Maybe they were somewhat alarmist, but concerns over the failure of context or the collapse of context with the internet age, or the rise of the web. And George Trow, or George Trow, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but wrote a fairly influential book called The Context of No Context, which sort of talked about the problem of where is the internet, and when you're online, where are you, and to what extent do you have a common shared history? Do you have the basis of accumulating a growth toward a higher and higher context situation, or is it just low context all the way down, where everything continuously has to be made explicit, and the loss of internalization of information, or what we'll call the externalization of knowledge, where increasingly people are, we'll say, are less interested in becoming a knowledgeable person, and what they want is access, and they would like to be able to, if they want to know, they want to know where to get certain pieces of information and to get access to it. But the degree to which they're trying to really internalize it is, it's arguably on the decline, right? And there's lots of evidence of this. If you look at a book like Proust and the Squid by Marianne Wolf, or you look at The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, there are a lot of books that people could reference to get at the, I guess, the changeover in what we mean by knowledge, right? But it's the loss of context that I think is really the interesting issue, that people struggle with what is even meant by the word. I think for some people, context just means their own life experience. Like it's each individual is a walking contextualizer that brings with them their past, and they appropriate and just sort of they give context to whatever it is they encounter. But the sense in which people can share in an ongoing collective context that makes possible for more economical, more efficient, more stable, maybe less adaptive, less flexible, but more in-depth forms of communication, it seems like those are being challenged by the web. And see if I could give a couple examples. Now, one would be, I'll give a quick shout out, people, everyone, Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman, where he's going to talk about the degree to which photography and telegraphy, they came together and they produced images that you could have visceral reactions to and all kinds of feelings about, even though they were wholly removed from your immediate experience. And that's created, and he calls it the now this, right? It's created this capacity to have stories within news where you have this emotional reaction, then to this next emotional reaction, to this next emotional reaction, and it's all wholly out of context. That is, the news creates an agglomeration of out of context bits for which you have completely varied emotional responses, and yet they are, to the extent that they're photographs, they do have a real contact with a one space and time in the world. It was an index taken from the world, and yet again the Telegraph just wholly removes us from the immediacy of that context. We're not really sure how to place it, and it becomes very problematic, especially when they're all condensed and you just sort of flow from one to the other. But it's not even there, because you could say, did you watch the news last night? But now with the internet, it's more and more dispersed. You're not sure who's getting access to what information. And that really is the interesting one, is who's getting what access to what information. So let's take the Facebook as an example. In some way people say, oh, we're more connected than ever. I'm posting my stuff up on Facebook and everyone knows what I'm doing. But do they really know? Or do they not know? You can post something up, and unless everyone gives it a thumbs up and you hear a lot of people saying they like it, you're not sure who read it, who didn't. Could they have read it and not thumbs up? Yeah, you're not sure. And so take this case. So now you have two students, right? And then they're there and they're meeting like at a party or something, and maybe they happen to be Facebook friends, but they don't know each other that well. The one person, they may want to say to the other person, hey, I was looking at your Facebook page and I saw that you went to Florida on spring break, but they'd feel like a stalker kind of bringing up the fact that they were looking at some person's Facebook page. Now, even though the person had posted it, they feel odd in interaction bringing up some fact, especially if it was some distant fact, they're not really sure what to say. The other person who went to Florida, they might not want to say to the person, hey, I don't know if you saw it, but I went to Florida for spring break, because they probably feel like, well, you probably saw it. I posted on Facebook. I feel like I'm just repeating what you already know. And because it's not the sharing of information or the not sharing of information, it's the not knowing what others know or not. See, it's because they're both there, they both standing looking at each other going, and neither wants to, I guess, deal with that, that sort of issue of feeling awkward by either repeating themselves, because then they feel silly. Why did they say it before? Or they're just repeating it. Everyone already knows it. Or they feel like some shadow lurker, some person who's, stalking other people on their pages. And we talked more about what context is and to what extent can you have meaningful interaction with people without a growing sense of context. Now, Conference Report had raised the issue in which the siloing effect of videos on YouTube creates a kind of context. That is, the options that come up for recommended for you are based on prior habits, maybe based upon prior interactions, and to that extent it tries to create a context of ongoing conversation and interaction, or something like a shared history for you on YouTube. But and that's helpful. But you could say, a person, they watch your video, and they might even give a comment on your video, but are you sure they watched all of the video? If they were watching the video and they were also, cleaning the house and doing other things, maybe doing homework, maybe doing the dishes, to what extent were they really paying attention? So there's this sense in which we're sharing contexts, but we're not really sure what exactly is being shared. And it's the loss of not shared information. See, information's at an all-time high, but what seems to be at a loss is the degree to which others can be sure that they know that others know what they do.